back to the world-famous city of Hong Kong. With over 7 million residents and a long and vibrant history, Hong Kong is the gateway to Asia. Volvo Ocean Race's first ever Hong Kong stopover used the downtown Victoria Harbour and Kowloon Bay as a spectacular setting for racing. The old airport site of Kai Tak allowed an expansive race village, and the visitors, old and young, were able to enjoy the waterfront setting and all that the village has to offer. The import race saw strong breeze and extremely close racing. Akzo Nobel took a well-fought and well-sailed victory, buoying spirits throughout their team. Mapfre returned the favour on the round Hong Kong Island race, but it was Dongfeng Race Team who sailed most consistently, enjoying 2 second-place finishes and taking the overall win for the import series. Hong Kong launched plenty of spectator boats, and the scenery downtown and around the island rewarded everyone with a great weekend on the water. Today, we're returning offshore, so let's take a look back at how the fleet got here on leg 4 from Melbourne, Australia.
I expect a very tough leg, a very complicated one.
Probably would have rated as the more difficult ones in this race.
I don't think any of us have probably done this route into Hong Kong.
18 to 20 days leg.
It's a long leg, 5,000 miles of pretty high stress.
That part of the ocean's seeing some of the highest sea surface temperatures in the whole globe right now.
Everybody has a chance. I've kind of lost a lot in this leg, so for me it's a very stressful one.
Tactically it's going to be much more hard, so we have to be ready for everything.
We're off, and with that it's goodbye Australia, hello to Hong Kong.
Plenty of water, got fire hose.
Having a good time.
We're now reaching along in 28 knots, gateway to the doldrums.
We've got a yacht race.
A big fight against all the opponents.
Yeah, we had a bit of a speed issue, yeah. Not 100% sure, you must go this way, you must go that way. It's just not where you want to be, straight off the bat.
Very much looking forward to getting out of the position we're in at the moment.
Akzo Nobel and Dongfeng just on the bow.
This is good for our confidence.
Pretty cool, you know, not many people ever see this.
Nice, a little bit of something besides blue water.
Damn, it's a beautiful night. And we've hit the doldrums. Here we are in, I guess, real doldrum-like conditions. In general, the good guys chip through all right.
Trying to sail from puff to puff.
Little puff over here, little puff over there.
It's a Nobel from 2 miles behind us, or what's now sort of 6 miles in front.
Don't think doo-doo.
3 to 1 knot. Slow.
Some form of torture.
Just remember, this is a game, it's not the war.
Na 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 na. We're going the whole 4 knots. Boring. Hot.
Spritzy whole body.
Damn hot.
Unbelievably hot.
One of those really nice moments when you're reminded how lucky we are to be out here in the middle of the ocean.
Just means that start of the day just means that
this is ridiculous. Might be trapped here forever. All we need is like a big cloud or something with thunder and lightning.
to be boosting again. Later,
We thought we'd be fighting at the front and now we're fighting at the back. Scallywag behind, so it could be worse.
This will be catastrophic if we ran last.
It's been a pretty painful morning.
Like forward, forward!
There he is!
Oh God.
The Virgin!
Will only hurt a little bit.
We're going to clear every cloud now and we're going to win the race.
I think we are in a strong position. We should be the boat with more wind.
We've got the Scallywag shooting through the leeward at the moment. They've come from nowhere.
And quite leading. What's up?
Who's your daddy?
We lost about 60 miles on the other guys.
That's reality. We just got to face up and get on with it.
Vestas 32492.
We smell like we've been at sea for 2 weeks. In the line of this yellow!
Yeah, I'm good. We're trying to find new ways to lose the race, though, I must say.
Catching the Scallywag.
He doesn't know where we are. He doesn't even know we're still leading.
It's going to be really interesting watching the next couple of skids.
We're scared that they don't gain. It makes it harder for them to catch us.
Hopefully, sign the deal. Cha-ching!
We're finished. We'll fight until the end.
On them, here we go!
Come on, baby.
Vestas 11th Hour Racing retired from Leg 4 following a collision with a non-racing vessel just 30 miles from the finishing line in Hong Kong. All 10 mariners from the other boat were rescued, but one didn't survive. The entire Volvo Ocean Race community was shocked and saddened by the incident, and our thoughts remain with those affected. As a result, Vestas 11th Hour Racing didn't participate in the racing in Hong Kong or Guangzhou and will also miss Leg 6 to Auckland, where their race boat has been shipped for repairs. The Vestas 11th Hour Racing team expects to rejoin the race in Auckland, New Zealand. For the fourth time in the history of the event, the Volvo Ocean Race fleet visited China. Following previous race stops in the Olympic sailing venue of Qingdao in 2008-9 and the southern resort of Sanya in the last two races, this edition would see the fleet in Guangzhou, some 70 miles up the Pearl River Delta from Hong Kong. The stopover included the Dongfeng Import Race Guangzhou, where Mapfre showed its class with a wire-to-wire win over Team Brunel and Team Akzo Nobel. After 4 days in Guangzhou, on Monday, the fleet departed for Hong Kong, ahead of today's Leg 6 restart. For the completion of the transition Leg 5 to and from Guangzhou, each team received 1 point on their scorecard. So after 5 legs, Mapfre lead with 34 points, Dongfeng Race Team on second with 30, Vestas 11th Hour Racing on 23, despite no scores for legs 4 and 5. Sun Hun Kai Scallywag jump up to 4th on 20 points, Team Brunel 5th on 18, 6th it's Team Akzo Nobel on 15, and Turn the Tide on Plastic with 9 points. Leg 6 is another long one at 6,100 nautical miles. It takes the fleet across the South China Sea to the northern tip of the Philippines. After that, it's into the Pacific and a long drag race to the southeast, dodging the many island chains of Polynesia until they reach Auckland. The first half of the leg is the reverse of Leg 4, upwind and big breeze to start, then another equator crossing that brings more tricky conditions in the doldrums, which proves so decisive on the way to Hong Kong from Melbourne. The difficult question will be, head south early or remain sailing east in the breeze and cross the doldrums later. Two potentially competing strategies that will only become obvious after at least a week or two.
Well, Leg 6 is going to take us from here, from Hong Kong to Auckland. And again, it's a very long leg, around 6,000 miles, and it's pretty much the reverse of what we have done from Australia.
Yeah, the next leg is for me the most difficult, complicated and dangerous leg, I would say.
Yeah, basically it's the same, almost the same way back as how we got here.
We saw how hard this area is to sail to get here, and it's basically the same in reverse. Predominantly upwind, which is unlike any other leg. So it's going to be a tough first few days, and none of the boats have done a lot of upwind sailing, so it'll be interesting.
Out of Hong Kong, it could be quite rough. I wouldn't be surprised if we, could see some pretty strong winds.
The start is going to be important as usual, because when we leave the Philippines, take the dry winds and the bridge goes for each other.
And then when you arrive in between Philippines and Taiwan, depending on the weather forecast, and that's where there is a big choice to do.
And you normally want to go the long way round so that you get the best angle you can through the doldrums and down the south hemisphere trade winds towards Auckland.
A big one, because you have to decide where you are going to cut the doldrums.
You're almost sailing in the wrong direction before you make that commitment to turn, and it's who dares to go the furthest normally does the best.
But you will only know 8 or 7 days after if you make a good choice, and it's not easy. That's going to be a nightmare at the navigation table.
We know the doldrums is full of quite active thunder cells and lightning and squally stuff.
But hopefully once we are sort of back around the equator and over the equator, back in the southern hemisphere, it should be quite enjoyable as well. That last bit to New Zealand should be very good sailing.
Then it's a case of fast sailing towards Auckland, and you normally come in at the coastline and you have to sail around the coast a little bit before you get into Auckland, and it's again pretty busy fishing and pleasure craft, so but it's almost a little bit of, it's a really nice sight because it's very green hills and proper land that everyone wants to go and see.
So here we go, there's the race committee boat. We are within the warning signal, so we're going to take a quick look at the weather, brought to you by Vestas Wind. East-southeast, 8 to 10 knots, lightish inside Kowloon Bay and Victoria Harbour here, obviously flat water, but as the boats get out, the waves will be a little more moderate and then building. 12 degrees centigrade, so a little warmer than we've seen over the last week or two. There's the race committee boat, 1 minute and 30 to go to the start, less than 1:25, and all the boats now accumulating, gone quite light here at the start. I'm joined in the booth here with Annie Lush. Annie, crew member on Team Brunel, previously on Team SCA. Great to have you here, a 3-time match racing world champion and Olympian.
1, now.
1 minute. Annie, tell us what you see here.
Obviously a very light start, everyone wanting the same end here. And AXO have gone for to deploy there, so it's all a bit of a trick here is to getting your timing right and making sure that you're full speed at the line.
Well, welcome to all our viewers on Facebook, on Twitter, all around the world. Thanks for joining, and let us know where you're watching from. We've got some very diverse locations where people are in front of their computers, devices, TVs. Pictures of Team Brunel. There's the fleet, all starting on port. A very unusual sailing start here. AXO Nobel to leeward. Mapfre just to windward, 18 seconds to go.
15.
Pablo Arate. Is that helming Mapfre? And Mapfre sort of towards the back, 10 seconds to go. It looks like Sun Hun Kai Scallywag are going to do a real nice job here.
3, 2, 1, now.
Here we go for the start, and Sun Hun Kai Scallywag, great start, as with AXO Nobel. They're just a few boat lengths back from the line, but this is another 6,000 nautical miles to go, so no big problems right here. Great start from the local Hong Kong team, David Witt, skipper. Here we go, the start of leg 6 from Hong Kong to Auckland, New Zealand. Sun Hun Kai Scallywag get the best of it. Team AXO Nobel just to leeward. going to be a long old leg. Fascinating to see the excitement even at the beginning of such a long leg, Annie.
Yeah, well, I mean, although you're going a long way, 6,000 miles, a lot of the time the sailing is like this. You know, it's an offshore race, but the boats are close. It feels like this all the time.
Let's go down to our man on the water, Nick Bice.
Yeah, well, we saw the complete fleet be a little bit late for that start, and both Matt Frey, Dong Fong and Turn the Tide are out the back door here. It's sucking a lot of bad air, but obviously saw the local boat Scallywag have a very nice start along with Axel Nobel, and they look quite powered up now, so it's probably not as much breeze as what was anticipated, but they're going to get out of here quite nicely. They were punching a little bit of tide to get out through the channel here, so it could get a little bit tricky as they get to the edges of Victoria Harbour.
So it looked like a little bit of tide against, and also the breeze just dropped fractionally before the start, caught everyone out a little bit. I mean, it was 4 or 5 boat lengths off the line at the start for this leg 6 to Auckland. Bicey.
Yeah, and I think they got a little right-hand shift within the last minute there also, so that didn't help for their timed run into the start line either.
We've got pictures of Team Axo Nobel to leeward of Sun Hun Kai Scallywag. Amazing arrival, and this is a great position for the Hong Kong local team. It really was the most spectacular arrival here in Hong Kong. They'd been at the back of the fleet, managed to just sniggle their way through the doldrums, and they came in here and won. And it really did take Hong Kong by storm, both newspapers and so many of the fans. There's a new initiative from Sun Hun Kai Scallywag to get lots of underprivileged kids sailing here in Hong Kong. And what it did was really show off Kowloon Bay, Victoria Harbour, downtown Hong Kong as a great sailing venue, despite quite shifty conditions because it's so built up. It really is a lovely place to sail. And this is where we're going, out of Victoria Harbour through the heads. A little narrow spot there before the boats bear away a little bit. And then past Hong Kong Island on the left-hand side. Just to leeward. Here are the boats now as we get upwind, but it is pretty shifty, Annie, and this is difficult, but we've seen before it's so important to get ahead even at the start.
Yeah, you're right, Andy. We saw that with the round Hong Kong race. You know, Matt Free just got a couple of boat lengths out, and then, you know, in the end that ended up being minutes for them on quite a short race. I think we just heard Libby Greenhouse, the navigator on Scallywag, we just heard her saying we want to minimise the tax here. And you can see all the boats are using their code zeros, the big sail there in front. And actually to tack with that sail is really hard. You've got to furl it all the way up and then tax. It's very slow. So they want to minimise the number of tacks they're doing to get out, but they also don't want to sail in bad air of the other boats. So it's quite tricky here.
Pictures of Team Axo Nobel just on the windward side there, sitting on the side is one of their crew for this race, Cecile Laguette. And Nick Bice, will go down to you. Cecile was in the boatyard, I think, one of your hands in the boatyard for the last edition, Nick.
Yeah, that's right. Cecile was part of our team within the boatyard during the last edition of the race, and she's actually the fiance of our head of the electronics team, Dan Jowett. So that's something we try to do and try to do with all our people in the boatyard, with the majority of them being sailors, to try and promote, to teach them as much as we can to get them on these boats. I mean, it's everyone's dream to actually sail in this race, and to actually see a lot of the boatyard staff actually on some of these boats is very satisfying for all of us.
Yeah, there's Cecile, and Cecile in the white t-shirt there, just on the windward side, next to the skipper Simeon Teampont. And Bicey, Cecile, not the only one of your boatyard graduates to move their way onto the race boats.
No, we've actually got Liz Wardley as well, the watch captain and boat captain of Turn the Tide on Plastics. And then on SHK Scallywag, we've got Tristan Sill, who's part of the electronics team, along with Antonio Fontes, who famously did one leg on Axel Nobel and be the first Portuguese man into a Portuguese finish. And then now he's back on Sung Hong Kai Scallywag, along with also Abby Ayler, who the queen of the Volvo Ocean Race, we call her, who is part of Team Brunel.
Excellent. Well, a great place for these sailors to learn their skills under the careful tutelage of Nick Bice, and they really get to see all that's going on down in the boatyard. Annie, Cecile, amazing sailor on board Team Axo Nobel. You know her pretty well.
Shows some real tenacity from Cecile. You know, she came and trialled for Team SCA, and she was quite inexperienced at the time as a sailor, but a very good engineer. You know, put all her work into making sure she was in this race. Went to work with Bicey in the boatyard, gained a lot of experience there, and also went sailing by herself, single-handed in the Figaro offshore, to gain as much experience as she could last year. And great to see that she's now got a spot on one of the boats here after all that work.
Yeah, solo sailing, a very good way of getting into the Volvo Ocean Race as well, because you have to learn all of the skills, and this is one of the great things about the rule of having the rule makeup of being able to have women on board the boat, these sorts of opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, no doubt without the sort of foresight of Volvo putting that rule in place, I'm not sure we'd see many girls out there today. And great to see so many girls in the water, and girls like Cecile who've worked really hard to be out here. You know, Annemiek Best on Scallywag, another example of someone who's worked really hard to get in this race. I think we can, you know, see her out there working really hard, and she didn't make it last time. She's gone out there, sailed loads of different boats, and here she is today.
Yeah, there's a combination of both these the offshore sailors, but also Olympians and match racing champions, particularly on the women's side, a real diversity of their skills brought here. What does this mean for the future of the race?
I think it's fascinating that this race, we've got so many different sailors in it. You know, America's Cup winners, Olympic champions, solo offshore sailors, and Volvo veterans. I think everyone's learning from each other, which gives a really exciting experience on board the boats. But it's great that this race is appealing to sailors from all different sort of areas. And yeah, I think going forward, I hope that stays. I think everyone can see that this is really a race about teamwork, and I think it's one of the toughest races in the world. So if you're a racer, it's what you want to do.
Yeah, great. The diversity of backgrounds from where they come, and also the diversity of gender on board. It's great. You can actually see a lot of that in the comments on Facebook. We appreciate them, but we do see a wide range of male and female comments on our Facebook. It's great to have you all watching as we go on board with Matt Frey. Let's get down to the water, because Team Axo Nobel leading, but it's tricky. Everyone tacking through the narrowest point out of Victoria Harbour. Let's listen in on Matt Frey, and then after that we'll go down to Nick Bice. The duck having to avoid. Oh, they're having to avoid Dong Fong. Oh, it's all on already. Very calm. Matt Frey were on port. Dong Fong race team picked up a nice puff on the right-hand side of the racecourse. They were on starboard. The oldest rule in sailing, if you're on starboard, you're in the right of way position. The other boat's on port, so Matt Frey ducking. Talking about Axo Nobel and where the breeze is. There's the fleet spread around the exit of Victoria Harbour, all looking for the best puffs. So you, Annie, sailed with an all-female team, and now we've got these mixed teams. What has that done for what you can learn from some of the guys, and how is it?
I think the biggest thing in the last race was just as an all-female team, we didn't have anyone with that much experience. We'd had a couple of previous Volvo Ocean races, but now we're getting the chance to sail with people like Bauer Becking and people who've sailed the race 6, 7, 8 times.
Yeah.
So, nothing beats sailing with someone with that much experience.
And you get to sail with people who've won it before, so they give you some of the insight into the real tiny tips.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it felt a little bit like we were sort of stabbing at the dark at the beginning of the last race, and we had to really make it up ourselves. We got there by the end of the race, and I think we're going to see Turning the Tide do that in this race. It's tricky when you don't have very much experience on board. It really helps in this race.
Yeah. What were some of the really small, incremental tips that you got from some of the previous winners?
I think the biggest thing in this race is patience. It's knowing when to change sail, knowing when to make a move, knowing when to kind of worry about something and change what you're doing, or when to stick with what you're doing. Having the right amount of patience.
And you had some rookies on board with you. We've got Cécile Laguette, who's on board Team Axo Nobel, and they're leading out of the heads right now. What's going through her mind? She's wanted this moment all her life. Now, here she goes off to New Zealand, where she's a 10-year resident now in New Zealand, sort of going home.
To be honest, Andy, what's going through her mind right now is probably, am I grinding in the right gear, and what we're about to grind in next. You can see here they're tacking out of their heads with the masthead zeros. This is really hard work. It might be light wind, but this physically is such hard work. So if she's thinking about much more than that, I'd be surprised.
Okay, incident here between Matt Frey now on starboard, Sun Hun Kai Scallywag just to right of screen, having to duck underneath them. Brunel, your team, Annie, big duck.
Yeah, that's a huge duck there. But right decision, very early at the beginning of a 6,000 mile leg, the last thing you want to be doing is taking a penalty. There's a lot of race left in this, so be conservative, get out clean, don't get any holes in the boat, and keep the sails in one piece.
There you go, all the tips. And when we talk about a duck, it's sort of going underneath the starboard tacker in sailing, known as a duck.
It looks really tricky, Andy, with the tide. You keep seeing different boats shooting forward, and I think quite a lot of that is not only shifting wind, but probably difference in tide as well.
Yeah, Matt Frey, look at how long it's taken them. That doesn't look like the best tack on board Matt Frey. Annie, tell us.
Ideally, that sail would deploy, sort of unfurl itself as you're close to wind. It makes it much easier to get the sail back in, and they've ended up with a bow down. Maybe that's due to the tide there, and the sail's blown out, and now they've got to grind it all the way in. You can see them there. This is going to be a long grind. Someone will normally say that, and it's time to get your head down when that happens.
Sophie Cizek, Blair Chuk on the pedestals. Just talk us through how that's going there.
Yeah, so they're still grinding in that masthead there. It's going to be about a minute and a half of grinding just to get that big sail in now.
Look how much distance they've lost, right?
Yeah, and I think a tack like that is going to cost at least 10 lengths, probably more.
Let's go down on the water to give us, demystify some of that current and wind shifts. Nick Bice.
Yeah, it looks pretty shifty out here, but Axo Nobel have certainly done the right thing, and they're showing a clean set of hills to the rest of the fleet, and it's going to be almost a bit of a procession from here on in. It looks as though Axo Nobel can get up around the next point, but they're fully powered up and stepping away from the fleet quite nicely. And as the rest of the fleet make their way out through the tight little channel here, they'll be picking up a bit more breeze also, and put their foot down, ready to get out of here.
So Nick, we've had a few good results on the import races from Team Axo Nobel. They seem to have sort of grasped the nettle. They seem to be on the up and up, and now leading out here at Hong Kong. There's a team that really wants to win.
Yeah, no doubt about that. They had not a shaky start, but a little unsettled to the actual race itself, but now they seem very settled. They've got some very bright people on board and some extremely talented people mixed with some fantastic experience as well. So I think we're actually going to keep seeing them on the up and up as this race progresses.
Martine Grail, gold medal winner from the Rio Olympics. Nikolai Seerstedt, a very accomplished match racer and Volvo veteran. You know Nikolai, Annie.
Yeah, interesting to see here. We were talking about diversity of people in the race, and at the back of the boat here, driving and on the main, we've got an Olympian and a match racer. Yeah.
And a Volvo veteran.
And a Volvo veteran. Perfect people to take them out of their heads.
And Jules Salter, also a Volvo veteran, but himself a very accomplished match racer. He's won the World Match Racing Championships back in the day. Luke Malloy, similarly. And Nick, just talk to us about Dongfeng race team and Mapfre. They're in 4th and 5th right now, but that is going to be a great rivalry going to Auckland, and we've seen every chance they get, Dongfeng race team have been squeezing Mapfre, tacking on them, trying to make their life hard. That's a good rivalry we're going to enjoy.
I mean, regardless if there's 1 mile to go or 6,000 miles to go, they love the rivalry, and they're going to keep pushing each other the whole way through. Without a doubt, probably 2 of the most training times they've had, those teams. So it's no surprise we see them at the front of the fleet. They're going to keep pushing each other all the way. But I think most of the teams right now are probably going to enjoy this 8 to 10 knots, because once they get out off the coast of Hong Kong tonight, it's going to be a lot breezier than that.
Yeah, thanks, Bicey. And here we go with Pete Burling. He's driving and he's going to his hometown. We're going to see a lot of Kiwi fans, and we encourage you all to come to Auckland, New Zealand in a few weeks for when the boats arrive. Pete Burling, a superhero in New Zealand, still extremely young, but he's won a gold and a silver medal at the Olympics, and he's won the America's Cup driving. Carl Langford right next to him. Those two rivals. Pete Burling got the better of him in the America's Cup.
Yeah, there's been a lot of chat on board about sailing into New Zealand here, with obviously Pete saying it's the best country in the world, and Carl rivaling that. He's also from Australia, so another rivalry between them. But I think they're actually becoming good friends through this race, despite their previous rivalry.
And Pete really trying to help with his knowledge of the America's Cup and the Olympics, trying to get the boat faster. The team hasn't had their best results. To give us a bit of insight into the team, what they're trying to do to move forwards?
Yeah, I mean, we were the last team to join the race, which is always tricky, as Bryce was saying earlier. Certainly training time helps, and I think we've been struggling to find the speed. Last leg was disappointing, as we had to have quite a lot of crew changes, not just myself, but a number of people had to get off, and we had to put people on last minute. But this leg, great to have Pete and Louis and Albie back and have sort of some of the core team back on. And we've taken, a few sort of radical approaches to this leg. You'll see we're the only boat sailing with 8. And partly because I'm injured, but that doesn't mean we're going to be lighter. And it'll be interesting to see how we fare. You've
gone light on other things on the boat, and you've tried to...
Yeah, I think we'll be one of the lighter teams this leg. Guys might regret that tonight when it's cold, but we'll see how that goes. There isn't much we can do with these boats. They really are very one design, and it is how you sail them. But how much stack weight you take is the choice that you get.
So only 1 pair of socks instead of 2, is it?
Yeah, I don't want to know how many pairs of pants the boys are taking or not.
Yeah. Well, so Team Brunel in a nutshell. Pete Burling is back alongside Alberto Bolzan and Louis Balkan, Rome Kirby, Sam Newton and Jens Dolmer are off for this one. So as you said, on the boys' side, back to their sort of core team. No changes on Team Mapfre that we're looking at right now. And Pablo Arate continues to helm in all of the import stuff that they do. Xavi Fernandez, they're the skipper. Everyone's standing up like lemurs right there. Something going on over to windward. Rob Greenhouse pointing it out. Looking at the next puff, I think. Annie?
Yeah, again, as we said, it looks really tricky getting out of here, and I think trying to decide whether or not to tack out or to carry on straight.
That noise.
At this condition, you're just constantly trimming, and looks like it's very puffy. At some moments, we're seeing everybody hiking out on the side, which suggests they're kind of all near max power. And then other moments, you've got everyone inside the boat, so a lot of adjustments needing to be made. This sail would take you upwind from sort of 0 to 12 knots, so you need to do a lot of adjustments in that range.
Yeah. Okay, here's Mapfre. We've got the crew list right here. Xavi Fernandez, the 4-time Volvo Ocean Race veteran. He's now skipper. Joinville, and he's won the race, and he's done 4. He's, I think, the oldest man on board any of the boats. Pablo Arate, inshore helmsman Rob Greenhalgh, has won it with Ian Walker last edition, and 4-time veteran. Willie Altadil, Louis Sinclair, Blair Tuke, Sophie Cizek was with you for Team SCA, and Tamara Echegoyen, the gold medal winner for Spain. So a very Spanish flavour to their team. And Spain have raced 10 times in the Volvo Ocean Race, never won. But currently, Matt Frey leads overall with 34 points over Dongfeng with 30 points. So they're in a good spot right here. In 2nd and 3rd place as we head out of Hong Kong, Sun Hun Kai Scallywag and Team Brunel. Let's go through their crew list. Bauer Becking is 8th Volvo Ocean Race. He's really trying to win it. Never won it. Andrew Cape, the navigator, very experienced. Louis Balcan, Alberto Bolzan, Carlo Heusman, Carl Langford, Sally Barkow, who's you're keeping a seat warm, very kind of you, and Peter Burling, that legend that we've talked about already, and Bauer, great leader, great leader.
Yeah, I mean, well, the most experienced Volvo Ocean racer in the race, and you know, from all that experience, he's learned how to make teams go and not. And then well supported by a good team, but you see quite a young team. KP would be happy for me including him in the young team there. It's actually KP's 7th race, so he's also very experienced. But you know, Bauer's really keen to help the young guys, bring them up, and you know, he's given a lot of responsibility to the likes of Pete Burling and Carl Langford and Carlo, the young guys on board, and really helping to speed them along in their learning of offshore sailing.
Yeah. Sun Hun Kai Scallywag, pictures of them right now. Let's have a look at their team. David Witt, the skipper. Libby Greenhalgh, now the navigator after that very successful leg 4 into Hong Kong. John Fisher. Grant Warrington not on board this time. Alex Goff, Annemieke Bess, Ben Piggott, Tristan Seal that Bicey was talking about, the boatyard graduate, and Antonio Fontes. Ooh, look at this bit of match racing in the background. Let's look at that. David Witt on Sun Hun Kai Scallywag. He's driving right now. They're just trying to get out of the way of Team Brunel. They've just rolled over the top of them. Every inch they want it here. And dirty air, it looks like, for the Hong Kong team from Team Brunel. How much turbulence is there off the back of these sails?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. You can see the size of these masthead zeros, which is the sail on the front. It goes from the prod from the very front of the boat to the masthead, and then it sheets all the way at the back of the boat, so the turbulence coming off that is huge. And you can see that Scallywag are very flat now compared to Brunel, showing that they've got less wind in their sails, and so they've got less power. They've got to do whatever they can now to try and keep as much clear as they can, or they're going to have to tack.
Yeah. Sun Hun Kai Scallywag, Luke Parkinson's off, replaced by Antonio Fontes. David Witt has basically stuck with the same team apart from Warrington. Pictures on board has Libby Greenhalgh just to windward. She was with you on SCA, great girl and a real fighter.
Yeah, great to see Libby back in the race. She joined Scallywag for the last leg, her first leg with them, and I think, you know, they were really impressed with her. Obviously a great win, but a lot of that through tactical decisions. She's a meteorologist in her own right, and, you know, has already done a lap with us, learning to navigate. So I think watch this team, because she's prepared to make quite brave decisions. In this leg last time, we were one of only 2 boats to split north in the leg with Brunel, and we made huge gains through it. And yeah, she's not afraid to go with her heart. So be interesting to watch what they do in this leg.
Okay, Sun Hun Kai Scallywag on board with them right now, and around the crew list we've got a few changes. We've got one change, I think, on Team Axo Nobel, with pictures right there, as they lead the fleet out of Hong Kong. Let's go through their on-board gang. Simeon Team Pont, Jules Salter. There's one also with Abu Dhabi. No, he didn't win with Abu Dhabi. He won with, I'll come back to that. 3-time veteran, this is his 4th go. Chris Nicholson, Justin Ferris. He is new on board. He is in for Pete van Newkirk. Nikolai Sersted, who does all the driving. Brad Farrand, Kiwi, going home to New Zealand. Luke Malloy, Martine Grail, and Cecile Larguette. That's the crew on Team Axo Nobel. Ericsson 0809 was Jules Salter's win. This Team Axo Nobel. Jules Salter, great guy. I've sailed with him loads. He was my main chief trimmer for a couple of years in the match racing, and also a fellow crewman, the navigator on board our GBL Challenge 2003 America's Cup in New Zealand. Great guy, stoic, but a real character. He's, they say he's smiling on the inside when you have a look at Jules.
I think you might say that about a few navigators.
Right.
They do have a lot of people asking them probably quite stupid questions all day. And as we get more tired on deck, our questions become slightly more stupid. So.
Right. And their annoyance level increases enormously, right? It is one of the intellectual positions on board them. I mean, it's a super intellectual position. Why?
It's a very tough position on board. The navigator spends 90% of the time they're awake, sat in front of the computer screen below, actually not really on deck. And yeah, they've got to make a lot of decisions. They're the only person really watching everything that's going on.
Jumper. Leg jumper here from Sun Hun Kai Scallywag. I think that's John Lindor. There he goes. That's the sunglasses, but
you can hear there quite a lot of encouragement for the team, and actually the leg jumpers often, they're very keen until they get to the back of the boat, and then suddenly they're a bit afraid to jump. I thought Livy was going to push him then.
That's a great story. So they stand there, they're all matey, everything's great, and then all of a sudden the reality hits, does it?
Well, there's lots of chat normally about the kind of jump they're going to do, and then at the moment that they're actually stood there and they're afraid to jump, they just sort of fall off the back.
And do you have to encourage them sometimes? You're like, we can't take you any further.
Yeah, a lot. And I think you could even hear the guys on board there saying, "You're going to be all right, mate. You'll be all right." This is quite light conditions. You can imagine when it's windier.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we saw out of Lisbon. It was a proper jump out of Lisbon. Wendy Schmidt jumped off the back of Vestas 11th Hour Racing. She said it was quite a bump, and also the life jacket inflates, and it's.
Yeah, the life jacket inflates, and it sort of feels slightly like you're suffocating for the first minute that happens. And yeah, I think also there's other boats chasing you down if you're one of the lead boats, so it's quite scary. You've got other boats coming towards you.
Okay, Dongfeng race team, second overall at the moment in the Volvo Ocean race, really giving it a big nudge here. Had a great stopover for them both in Hong Kong and Guangzhou, a lot of sponsor activation. Charles Quadrelier, the skipper. Pascal Bidegari is now back on. That is their change. We had their the legend Frank Camas stood in for the last leg. Then Daryl Wislang, one on board Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing as well. Caroline Brewer, Jeremy Bayou, Kevin Escoffier, Jackson Hotel, just recently engaged a couple of days ago. Congratulations to him. Marie Ryu. Liu Che, who is replaced Chen Jing Hao on board. A lot of their Chinese sailors, and it made a big impact, didn't it? Both here in Hong Kong and in Guangzhou. The public right into them. They were heroes.
Yeah, it was brilliant to see how many of the young sailors here were down in the race village around. I saw 2 or 3 groups of Oppie sailors, I think the ABC Oppie group and the Hong Kong Yacht Club Oppie team, and they were all here to support their teams and get signatures from their heroes, basically.
It was amazing, the number of selfies and signatures and kit that was flying around. It was really great to see. And it is great for the Volvo Ocean Race to go and adventure to these new locations. And now we go back to one of our more traditional locations of Auckland, 11 times to New Zealand, 10 to Auckland, 1 pit stop in Wellington, and don't have Nick Bice right now, but he's got some pretty good stories. I'm sure we'll get some of those on the way in to Auckland for the arrivals. Turn the tide on plastic. Dee Kafari, ever smiling skipper with Brian Thompson, Liz Wardley, Nicholas Lundven, Henry Bombi, Lucas Chapman, Bernardo Freitas, Bianca Cook, Kiwi. She's going into Auckland as her hometown, so get lots of supporters out for her. Annalisa Murphy and Francesca Klapcic. Also, one of the real characters. Always see her dancing, smiling. Don't be fooled, though. She's an amazing sailor, right?
Yes, Francesca's a fantastic sailor, an Olympian, accomplished Olympian.
World champion in the 49er FX, right?
Yes, and yeah, she's very tough. I wouldn't want to take her on in a fight.
No, plenty of tattoos out there. When she rolls her sleeves up. Nico Lundven returns to the boat after a break, after the birth of his child, actually. And the Aussie rookie Lucas Chapman rejoins after a break. Bianca Cook and Henry Bombi are back on board. Bledon Mont, Martin Stromberg, Federico Mello and Elodie Matreau all stepping off. So quite a few changes, but all familiar faces actually for the Volvo Ocean Race team. Look, a good rotation, and the message of clean seas and turn the tide on plastic, I've got to say, has been remarkable. Whether it be finding microplastics in the Southern Ocean, their scientific activity, it's really touched the zeitgeist of messaging all around the world. And when you look at your Facebook feed, sometimes you can't tell whether it's Turn the Tide on Plastic, the United Nations, David Attenborough, the BBC, it all rolls into, and their messaging really strong.
Yeah, and you know, I think the sailors are some of the best people to carry that message, because especially in this part of the world, the amount of rubbish we're seeing in the ocean is, well, incredible and saddening. And yeah, you feel so fortunate to be out there, and then very unexpected to see bits of plastic floating around, sometimes thousands of miles from land.
I did talk to Dee, and it was actually here, Hong Kong, the first time I haven't seen her entirely chipper. I think she was very keen that they move up the leaderboard.
Yeah, it's funny, just as we were watching them then, you know, they've dropped back already a little bit here, but very tricky with the masthead zero tacking out like that, especially if they've just got a new crew back on, and you know, and they are a lot of inexperience as well on board. But they've really got to keep their heads up here, because this leg has a lot of opportunity in it. And I think now they've done enough of the race to sort of know what's going on, and I think we're going to see them improve from here. So to me, this will be the leg. We see them be able to maybe hang on to the coattails of the other boats a bit better, and then just keep chipping away. So it's a long race. There's still a lot of legs to go. And I think Dee can hold her head high, because, as you say, she's carrying a very important message, but she's also providing so much experience to these sailors. And yeah, it's not over yet for them.
No, and we wish them all the best. Their on-board reporter for this leg, James Blake, son of the famous Whitbread and Volvo Ocean Race veteran Sir Peter Blake. He was on Heath Condor 77-78, 81-82 on Saramco, 85-86 on Lion New Zealand, and then won in 89-90 on Steinlager 2, where they won every leg. And we'll go down to Nick Bison. He can tell us all the Australians who've won the Volvo Ocean Race. Oh no, maybe we've not got Nick Bison. Sorry, that was a small joke of mine.
I think when you tried that earlier, Andy, didn't you play your, you know, I'm not here message?
Yeah, right. AXA Nobel, the leaders right now. Great pictures. Nikolai Serstedt on the wheel. Jules Salter navigating just to windward there as well. That's Cecile also on the high side.
90 board, yeah?
We've got a bunch of Kiwis who are going down towards New Zealand. Bianca Cook, Brad Farrand on AXA Nobel, Blair Tuke on Matt Frey, Peter Burling on Team Brunel, Justin Ferris, Daryl Wislang, Dong Fong, and we're calling Cecile Laguette Kiwi. 10 years now, she's a resident there, so.
If you listen to her accent, Andy, you might laugh. She's definitely got a very strong French accent, but with Kiwi English accent as well, so it's an interesting one.
Yeah, smorgasbord accent, well done her. Team AXA Nobel leading out of Hong Kong here, followed by Team Brunel, then it's Sun Hun Kai Scallywag, then Matt Frey and Dong Fong. Dong Fong and Matt Frey very close to each other, only a few boat lengths between them. Puffs and waves. Chris Nicholson, we can hear him on board right there. And a pretty interesting weather forecast for a few days out. Plenty of breeze.
Yeah, plenty of breeze, and these guys have got a lot to do this afternoon and tonight now. You can see that they're currently on a setup for light winds. All their sails are stacked all the way forward, and they're on a pretty big sails. So there's going to be quite a lot of change to happen. They probably have to go through at least another sail until they're on the sail they're going to be on tonight.
Yeah, and we can see right there, everyone getting tooled up. They just had a little spin out right there. We just saw from the wake. They just got a little overpowered on Team Axo Nobel. But listen, you've been out here. The weather forecast 40 knots and big seas. There'll be plenty on.
My main memory from this leg last time, Andy, and the leave and it being upwind and windy was just a very sick onboard reporter and a couple of the other girls. So I hope that whoever does get seasick has taken their pills for the start of this leg.
Okay, let's look right here. We've got plenty of activity on the bow. Is that there's a J?
This is the J1 going up here. So this is the biggest jib as opposed to a prod sail. And you know, by 40 knots they're going to be on the J2. So as we were saying, they're going to have to peel through this one, and then they'll probably end up changing to the J2 as it gets windier.
Brad Ferrand on the bow, and he put on his.
The bowman always needs to be in a smock. You're basically always getting wet.
And now.
So they're now sheeting on that J1, and the next thing they'll have to do is then furl the bigger sail, the masthead 0. That'll furl and go forward, and then you'll see them drop that. Again, just a lot of grinding. So here they're going for the furl.
Yeah, Luke Malloy to the leeward side. So let's have a look as they furl the masthead 0. Team Brunel, let's see what the other boats are doing, whether they're doing a similar thing. This is, here we go, there's great. Well done, Matt Connor, beautiful.
And you might think, well, why is it flapping for so long? But it's really hard to furl, especially when you're going upwind. There's a lot of apparent wind in it, which is really pushing it out against what you're trying to do. And you can see they're trying to make a nice tight furl so that they can drop it and get it in the bag.
And that's what Luke Malloy's doing there. Lured to the right of screen, holding in his right hand, making sure he just doesn't just let it go.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to let it go too quickly, or you'll end up with a big sort of floppy bag at the front, which might deploy again and also won't go in the bag very well. But he has got the easiest job there. He's just easing everyone else's grinding. That's the winning job.
He has to do it right, though. I mean, that's part of the choreography, the ballet on board, everyone coordinating properly. And if you get a bad furl, we've seen it in previous import races, can be a disaster.
Yeah, exactly. If he's not doing that job properly, the sheets can go in the water, or you can get a bad furl, and then you'll have to start all over again. So everything needs to be done properly.
Now, let's see. Team Brunel in second. They're going to go through the same process, and we can maybe critique the techniques here. J1 is going up. They're in second, so they're just following behind. Looks like they're a little later on this change. I guess we call it a change down?
Yeah, change
Less
down,
sail.
yeah. It's always tricky, you know, you're trying to keep up a bigger sail and go faster, but sometimes once you get to the smaller sail, you're going faster because these boats do tip over a lot, yeah, often going smaller makes you go faster.
Yeah. Chatting about it on board as these boats head to Auckland, New Zealand. We've got a few partners who are based in New Zealand, Southern Spars. We're going to go and see them. They make the rigs and the rigging. Here we go. There's the furling mechanism right at the front. These brilliant pictures zoomed in from the helicopter, way up. Here goes the furl. Let's see if we can look at the trimmer. Who's that trimming down there?
I think Sally's doing the ease here.
Oh, Sally, the world's watching you.
Poor Carlo's by himself there on the handles. So they're only sailing with 8 here, so they're a little bit short-handed. You can see now in this we should have 6 people grinding, but we've only got 5.
Look, there's a space with your with your outline right there, should be there. Well, we wish you the best, Annie, with your recovery on your foot.
Thank you.
Axo Nobel leading. Team Brunel in second. Sun Hun Kai Scallywag third. In fourth, it's Map Frey fifth. Dongfeng Race Team. And in sixth, Turn the Tide on Plastic. You can see the waves building already. And that weather forecast was certainly a talking point as the boats left the restart here in Hong Kong. There's a tropical cyclone forecast around the Philippines, to the northeast of the Philippines, that they have to avoid. There's an exclusion they've put in to make sure that they don't dive too close into that, safety paramount. And then it'll be about when to go through the doldrums, but even 2 or 3 days in from the northeast, I believe, pretty strong puff, 40 knots. What did your weatherman say?
Yeah, same as that, Andy. And it's going to be interesting to see how long the boats stay in that. And I think, as we heard...
Oh, look, on board Sun Hun Kai Scallywag. Haven't held on to the sheet in the same way. Bad furl, I suspect.
It might be, yeah. If they're going fast enough, the apparent wind might be enough to make the furl good. But it's quite dangerous having these sheets flapping around here.
We have to organise the priorities. People got told to go and stack downstairs, so they were all down there. May not.
Ooh.
So what we just heard then is someone saying, we need to organise the priorities, and it is really hard on this leg leaf because you're starting off with a lot of the sails on deck, maybe some of them below, and also your downstairs stacks, so all your spares and your safety equipment and your food, you'll have to sort of split it either side because they were tacking out.
Furl was okay.
Furl was okay, yeah.
But not quite as tight as we saw in the first two boats.
No, and they were saying because they had some of their crew downstairs doing the internal stack rather than being on deck for that sail change. So it is hard. You've got a lot of things to do and you've got to decide which thing is the priority.
The bowman will be a bit grumpy about not the tightest furl because he's the one that has to...
They're going to drop it in a minute and he's got to try and get it in the bag.
Brr. Well, that was great to see a bunch of those different boats going through something that they have to go through offshore many times. This is trading up and trading down, getting enough sail. Talk us through that.
Yeah, so we call it peeling when we're going from one sail to another, and often there will be a crossover between two sails, which means you could be on one or the other. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier with patience. What I've certainly learned being with people with more experience is the amount of patience is to decide when to peel, because you can see it definitely costs you. I mean, this big sail, we're seeing it now, and Turning the Tide flapping around as you're trying to furl it. It gets everyone quite tired as well, so you can't peel every time the wind changes a few knots. So you've got to decide when you're going to peel, and if you're going to try and use the sail a little bit uprange or a little bit downrange. And these are the decisions we're making offshore all the time, because you can't just keep peeling like this over and over and over. It's slow and you'll wear everyone out.
So we'd like to see a little bit more tension on that Code Zero sheet as it's been furled. We saw that flapping a little too much. Now better, right?
Yeah, actually on Turning the Tide, I'd say they've done it right here, because if you keep too much tension at the beginning, it's very hard for the grinders to actually furl it. Okay. So you can sort of let it go at the beginning, but it's nearer the end you need to start taking the tension. If you hold tension the whole way, you'll have 6 angry grinders.
Oh, nice. Great insight, Annie. Really wonderful to have you here, giving us that sort of insight into how these manoeuvres go on board the boats. Team Matt Frey, and just to leeward there to the right, that looks like the strut.
Yeah, so you can see the outrigger, they're called, and basically this helps to get your sheeting angle further outboard. So as soon as the boats are off the wind, we end up using these. I think there's going to be a way now, that outrigger, because we're sailing upwind. But yeah, once you can get onto that, it really helps to get sail away from the boat. Helps open up the slot in between the sail and the mainsail. And the only thing is it's quite hard to put out. Try putting that out when it's windy and you're down to leeward there with waves crashing over you.
Why haven't they got that masthead zero down yet? What's the reason for keeping it up there? Matt Frey, the leaders right now. No, looks like a nice tight furl there, no problem.
Yeah, it looks like a good tight furl. You can also see that it's quite loose, and they've done that so that they can get the rig correct now for the jib. So there's a different rig setup for the masthead zero and the jib, and if you have the masthead zero nice and loose, it's now not affecting your rig setup. The reason they're not dropping it, I don't know, they might be about to tack, or they might be waiting for a good moment to drop it, because they'll want to get it round the front of the jib. And you can see quite a big sea there from this picture. So it's slow to go and do it at the wrong moment.
Yeah. Leading, Team Axo Nobel sailed very nicely. We talked about them being on the up and up. Bicey was talking about it as well. Ooh, looks like Turn the Tide on Plastic might be thinking about getting that masthead 0 down. That's Francesca Klapcic and Liz Wardley in big country on the bow.
Yes, you can see they're getting the bag out, and Liz was just holding on the sheet, and basically you've got to try and flick that masthead 0 around the forestay there, around that stay that the jib's hanked onto, and to windward, which is hard when the boat's heeling to leeward. So you can either flatten the boat out, which is slow, or you can grind it around with the windward sheet on that sail, or you can wait till you tack.
Yep, and all the sails stacked on the left-hand side. That's to counterbalance the weight of wind.
Yeah, and we're moving those around all the time, Andy. They feel like they're over 100 kilos each when they're full of water, and yeah, that happens a lot. Not only side to side, but also fore and aft with the trim of the boat.
Okay, Dongfeng race team. That's their bow right there, just slicing through the water. They've got over 6,000 miles to go. And that looks like a very tight furl on Dongfeng. Just giving them, grading their homework really here.
Yeah, you can see they've got their masthead 0 still furled, and also their J3, which was the smaller sail. You could see inside the jib, and that's because earlier on the boats were sort of reaching, so they had a staysail up, but now they're too close to the wind to be able to use that staysail, so that J3 is just furled up inside the J1 there.
And the furling mechanisms are on the bottom, not the top. It's just a swivel at the top, is it?
Correct. All the sails are furled from the bottom.
There you go. Okay. Dongfeng race team now. Charles Caudrelier, and he's had his game face on since the start. He's quite serious. He's serious, motivated.
Yeah, I think it's interesting this race. You know, in the last edition, Dongfeng came in. He was new to the race as a skipper, and they were really seen as sort of like this new challenge, but really showed form. And you know, I think if they maybe hadn't broken their mast in the Southern Ocean leg, I don't know where they'd have ended up, but they were the biggest challenge to Abu Dhabi in the race, and the overall winners. I think they learned a lot that race. They've come back with a lot of the same team.
Oh, there you go. That was it. You were talking about them.
Yeah, so their method has been that Charles has basically just steered to windward a bit, which has helped to flatten the boat out, made it easy to get that sail around the forestay, and they've dropped it. And sometimes, although it does slow the boat down for a couple of seconds, it's just better to do that than have 10 people on the bow grappling with the sail. You know?
Okay, well that was to get their masthead 0 down, as Annie was talking about, flicking it around the front, getting it down real quick. Again, brilliant coordination. Well, off we go to Auckland, New Zealand. Here, let's look at the race course. Coming out of Hong Kong, the boats head east, south of Taiwan, and it's day 2 or 3 where the breeze really increases here. They've got forecast 40 knots or so, and big seas. Stay to the north of the Philippines, and then there's a tropical cyclone they're talking about developing south of that situation, just to the east of the Philippines. And then here is where to go through the doldrums round Guam into the South China Seas, where to pick in the doldrums. And in previous races, there have been real gains to continue further to the east before getting down to the Waitemata Harbour of Auckland, New Zealand. We're going to have tons of fans down there, and pretty much everybody's got a boat in New Zealand. Annie, really great to have you here. Thanks so much. Final comments, feelings on board.
Yeah, well, good luck to all the boats in the 40 knots, and for Turn the Tide, we can see them here. I think, yeah, come on guys, I think this is your leg.
There we go, Dee Kafari and her team right there.
Loads of opportunity in this leg. It's not over till the end, so yeah, got to keep pushing the whole way. Tricky doldrums.
James Blake on the back of the boat there, the onboard reporter, off to New Zealand. Follow the race on our website, volvooceanrace.com, Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. In depth on Twitter with @RaceExperts, and of course, enjoy all the raw footage from on the boat, the tracker and much more when you download the app. Let's hear from Niall back at race headquarters in Alicante with The Daily Show.
Here in Volvo Ocean Race headquarters in a little over 12 hours time, we're going to be bringing you our first quick fix of leg 6. Then at 1300 UTC every day, we've got our daily show, jam-packed full of news, stories, more in-depth analysis from the boats, plus weather forecasting and opinions from those people that matter about who's doing well and who is about to shine. It is set to be an incredibly intense leg with plenty of wind on offer, plus let's not forget a very crucial roll of the dice through the doldrums. So if you can't miss a thing, join us here daily for all the action of leg 6.
Thanks to all of you who have joined us. Well, it's been a spectacular venue, a fusion of cultures, challenging downwind racecourses and dramatic backdrops. So it's goodbye from the bustling Chinese cities of Hong Kong and Guangzhou as we look forward to arriving in the famous Southern Hemisphere Mecca, over 6,000 nautical miles away, the City of Sails, Auckland, New Zealand.